Welcome to Willow's Southwest Studio, where we turn Earth into beautiful art. Today, I've got a super special project planned. We're going to be making a Cibola whiteware jar, and not just any jar. I'm going to be using some clay my good friend Mark Gibson sent me. Oh my goodness, guys, I am so excited about this project, and I can't wait to get it started. But first, I'd like to give a special shout out to Mark Gibson's. Thank you so much, my friend, for sending me this beautiful clay. I can't wait to work on it. Be sure to check out his channel, guys. I'm going to put a link in the description below, so check it out. All right, let's go over the tools that I'm going to be using for this project. So for this project, we're going to keep it authentic and simple. All I'm going to be using right here is a pookie. It's going to be the base for my pot. I've got a couple of gourd scrapers right here, two to work from. One's a little bit bigger than the other one. I've got here two cutting tools. These are going to help trim and shape. And then I've also got two smoothing stones just right here. And of course, a little bowl of water. And of course, we have the star of the show, that special clay from Mark Gibson's. Oh, this is just beautiful looking. So having said that, let's get started.
To start, I break off half the clay and prepare it for the base of my Cibola pot. This step is crucial to ensure the foundation is strong and evenly distributed. Once I have this complete, I then start to work the clay into a flat, circular shape, almost like preparing dough for a pizza. Once it's the right size and thickness, I'll carefully place it into the pookie to begin shaping the base of the pot. I'll carefully press the clay into the pookie. I'm not going to worry too much if it cracks or breaks. I can always patch those up. Once everything's in the pookie, it's time to start building those little walls upward. I'm aiming for a real thin wall, nothing too thick. The Cibola didn't use very thick pottery, so I'm hoping to replicate that with this special clay. With my smoothing stone, I'm going to make sure the clay is pressed into the pookie, as well as make sure I have a nice smooth bottom to work with. I have a few defects here that I need to address real quick. I'll just kind of smash those in with my fingers, grab my smoothing stone. We're just going to press those back in like so. There we go. That is looking pretty good. Just take your time here. This is so relaxing. We want to have a nice, happy jar. I've got my old gourd scraper right here. This is the power horse of this whole process. We're going to start to really get it smoothed out and make sure everything is even. This is a great tool for scraping away any kind of clay, especially if one area is too thick. You can easily scrape away that excess clay. It's also rounded, so this is going to be a vital tool for helping create that shape, especially once I add the first coil on. We'll get to that in just a moment though. For now, I just want a nice smooth surface to work with in here. Now with my cutting edge tool here, we're just going to make a nice flat surface to work with. It doesn't need to be perfect for this. We're going to be adding the most unperfect coil here in just a moment. Everything works itself out. So I've got my cutting tool right here. This is an invaluable tool. I'm just going to cut away a nice flat surface here to apply that first coil. Now, this step doesn't have to be perfect. Some people like it to be perfect. If you do, by all means, everybody does things their own way. I'm about to put on the most unperfect coil, so having a nice flush surface is not going to matter in the least for this project. But for now, I'm just going to trim some of this off, get rid of the excess high points, and just get somewhere in the ballpark. This is going to be beautiful. This is always so relaxing. If you have any problems in life, working with clay just always seems to take those problems away from me. Start to forget about those things and get more connected with this clay and the whole hobby. It's just such a beautiful thing. It's time to get some of this other clay out of here. We're going to start working on our first coil. Oh, this is always exciting. Break some of this off here. Don't know what that was in the clay, but we don't need that in the clay. Yeah, this looks about the right size. Let's just kind of smash this up. Now, normally you would roll this on a flat surface, or if you've got like a flat stone, you could roll that on, but I do not have that. My table's got all these grooves, and the clay will just stick to it, so I've had to adapt. You just got to make do with the best you do have. It's one of the neat things about primitive pottery. I mean, if you don't have the tool, just use what you can to make it work. Break some of this off. This clay is a little bit crumbly, I noticed, in that area. Just get it to a nice thickness here. And as I told you guys, there is nothing perfect about this coil at all. This is the most sloppiest coil you've probably ever seen. Especially if some of you guys do this all the time, you're probably thinking, what in the world, Will, are you doing? I can't even watch this right now. This is horrible. But this is just how I work. Especially if you're outdoors. I'll do a lot of these clay projects out in the woods or take it out to the desert in the wintertime and just have so much fun sitting out there and relaxing. You don't have a nice flat surface out there when you're out there. And again, it's just working with what you have. You can make this as economical as you want, or you can go all out. It's just however you like to do these things. Need a little bit more clay here to seal this in. I think I might have a little bit too much. Yeah, I'll just press this in. We'll just cut off what we don't need later on. Don't know what that was in there, but we don't need that in there. I'll just smash this up, wrap it back up so it doesn't dry out too soon. Thankfully, we're in the cooler months out here in Arizona, so this clay does not dry as fast as it does in the summertime. You have like 2-day dry time when it's in the middle of summer. So normally I'll merge my coils from the outside onto the inside, but this time I'm doing things a little bit differently, where I'm going from inside to outside. You can see I've got a bunch of gaps in here, but I'm not going to worry too much about that. There's little air pockets or whatever. Never seems to matter anything with this primitive clay. I've never had any problems with it. Everything just always seems to get smashed together just nicely. Right here I'm inspecting, just kind of pressing the walls upward, using my thumb to kind of get it to the thickness that I want. I'm looking for a certain thickness, as I mentioned earlier. I'm going to use this gourd scraper again to kind of start to shape that out. So we get a nice round body here. This is going to start to remove any excess clay that we don't need, and it's going to also start to lift the clay body upward. I got to admit, I'm not a big fan of the coil and scrape technique. It's a lot of fun, but I still like taking the paddle and anvils and just beating my clay, beating it into the shape you want it to, the thickness that you want. There's a little bit more work is involved with this. You're scraping it out and got to go over things with your hands and make sure you've got the right thickness. Oh boy, my early pots, they were so thick. And that's probably everybody does this stuff. You look back at your old stuff and you're like, wow, did I really make that? That was like an inch thick the clay was. And not that bad, but it sure felt like it when I look at some of my old stuff that I haven't broken up yet. Just kind of start to round it out. I'm going to go in an upward fashion here. It's a little bit wet. Let's just help kind of start to pre-smooth it out. Not going to worry too much about it being smooth just yet. My goal is to make sure I got the right shape. Make this one happy, beautiful little pot. Oh, I don't know about you guys, but I am excited about this. It's always fun to work on some clay that you've never worked on before, and just to even get clay as a gift. You know how cool that is, guys? Checking your mailbox and boom, somebody's sending you some clay. Boy, that just made my day when I got this package from Mark. So I let this pot sit for about an hour to firm up. It's pretty pliable. Sometimes you gotta let these clays firm up. Otherwise they'll just collapse in on themselves. Looks pretty good for now. I wound up trimming off the top here. I'm getting prepped for another coil, but I want to make sure this inside is smooth and rounded out as well. So I'm using the gourd scraper again. I'm just going to keep scraping away till I get the desired shape I'm looking for. I've got some excess scrap here. Don't need that. What in the world? Oh my goodness. These little things always get all over the clay body. That looks good. It's time to add our next coil. It's going to be coil number 2 right here. I'm going to roll up this little piece that we gained back. And we'll just start a little tiny coil right here. Gotta press this guy right in here. Again, like I mentioned earlier, probably sick of hearing it by now. It doesn't matter how perfect the coil is, or if it even looks like a coil at all, in my case. Oh boy. Now here I'm pressing the coil in on the outside so you guys can see. Just make sure it gets pressed in really well. If you don't do this, sometimes what can happen is your clay can crack during the firing process or even drawing. That was one of my big problems when I first started this hobby. Oh man, I would wonder why I always had these horizontal lines, and then I realized, oh, that's actually a coil line that cracked, and I didn't have them pressed in good enough, and it usually happened on the inside, so I always like to spend a little time on the inside making sure those are fully pressed in and fused together. With this second coil here, we are able to start developing the neck. And I use my thumb to press inward and just kind of lift it up. It's kind of neat how this just starts to happen naturally. You don't really no effort involved at all. You just press your thumb, squeeze together, and then it goes up. Just like so. I'll keep doing this till I get my neck nice and formed. I got my little tiny gourd scraper that I've made here. This is great for these neck parts. Helps me out with the rims as well. Sometimes you need multiple tools to address multiple problems on your pot. Of course, if I was making a full-size pot, this gourd scraper would be more than enough, but since I do a lot of small stuff, yeah, I had to make a couple of extra tools for these things. Just make sure this body is nice and smooth. Oh my goodness, guys, this is looking beautiful. And this clay, I have nothing to complain about it yet. There's been some clays that I've worked on that it's like, somebody just put me out of my misery. But this clay, I have no complaints about it. It has maybe a little bit of sagginess, but like we did earlier, let it sit for about an hour and it firms up. It's good to go. Shave this off. We were pretty much done here, guys. We managed to squeeze it through with just 2 coils. 2 coils! Ah, this is awesome. So I'm just taking my cutting tool here and just kind of shaving off the rim. Now this is where you're going to want it to be nice and level. Again, you don't have to make it perfect. That's one of the beautiful things about primitive pottery. You look at the museum pieces, you will never find a perfect rim anywhere. Now collectors, or if you're selling this stuff, that's probably the first thing they're going to notice is, that rim looks like garbage. It's not even level, it's not even even. It's kind of the first thing you notice, but when it comes to primitive pottery, I don't even worry about those things. That was probably my hardest thing when I first started working on primitive pottery, is if you know me, I'm a perfectionist. And primitive pottery is just taking that away. I don't even fuss over it anymore like I used to. It's like, oh my gosh, I gotta make this look really awesome. But you look at the museum pieces for the inspiration, and none of that is perfect, and that's what makes it so beautiful, so special, and so unique. So I'm just gonna trim off this little excess bit of clay here. Got my smoothing stone here, and I'm just gonna kind of help this to press the clay in. You always want to have a nice pressed-in rim. These take so much abuse and stress from the thermal shock and firings. It's always good to have it pressed in as much as you can. It's coming along really well. This is just awesome, this pot. So here I'm checking for the thickness in the clay body. I want to make sure it has the same thickness all around. That's going to help with the drying as well as the firing process. And of course, the thinner it is, the better it is. You look at a lot of those ancient sherds, and I am always impressed at how thin they made their stuff. Just when I think my stuff is pretty thin, I get a piece that I found or have some friend showed me, and I'm like, wow, that is super thin. I can't believe it. It's always so inspirational and just such a beautiful thing to see. The ancients were so talented. So this thing is almost done. Making some final inspections here. Wow. All I've got to do now is probably let this thing just dry out for a day or two and come back once it's leathery hard and just smooth it out with a smoothing stone. We can knock out all these little bumps and stuff. But yeah, this is looking really good. Oh my goodness, guys. Mark, this is awesome, this clay. Wow. Yep, it is time to just let this thing dry for a while. I'm gonna come back probably in a day or two and smooth out those little bumps. Well, so much for a day or two, guys. It's only been 7 hours. This clay is drying a little bit fast, so... Oh boy, it's a good thing I was keeping an eye on it. I'm gonna have to smooth some of this out. I've got my smoothing stone. I'm gonna continue to go over it. I might wet it with some water, but this clay really doesn't need it yet. Once it's leathery hard, you can just keep smoothing it out like this. Just keep going over it. If it's starting to stick or you get little specks sticking to your stone, add some water. But this clay is just such a joy to work with. I didn't even need to do that. And just look how it's starting to burnish up already. This is just beautiful, this clay. Wow. And one thing I'm not going to be doing on this project is placing a white slip on it. If you get a really good reduction firing, most gray clays fire to a really light gray or a beautiful white. And this clay is supposed to fire to a nice white, so I'm not going to worry too much about that. I'm going to skip that step and just go straight into the painting. I'm just going to focus on making this nice and smooth. And oh, look at this. It's just absolutely beautiful. Oh, I can't wait to see how this looks when it's fired, but I've still got so much paint work to do on it. So I'll be skipping the painting process in this. I wish I had a way to make painting a little bit more interesting. It's kind of disheartening. You put together a 15-minute video and the average watch time is 1 minute and 30 seconds, and you're like, wow, you know, I probably could have cut out all that meat, but I don't know, maybe people's attention spans are not what they used to be in the old days, but I don't know. So here we are, we're getting ready to fire this thing a week later, guys. I am excited. I've got my pit dug. Oh, the fire is lit. It is going strong. Oh man, these reduction firings take forever. It's like a 3-hour cooldown. We're probably gonna let this go for 4 hours. Look at this fire. This is awesome. We hit a max temperature of 862 on this fire. This is just beautiful. That one is on par with what I was hoping for. I couldn't have asked for a hotter or cooler fire. This is just perfect.
Well, we're back in the studio, and check these results out, guys. Is this beautiful or what? Oh my goodness, these dark, beautiful blacks that just reduced so well, and these wonderful, beautiful grays. Yeah, we did not get all the carbon out, unfortunately, but I think it still looks really beautiful. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. All right, my friends, I really hope you enjoyed the making of this beautiful Cibola jar. Oh boy, and once again, thank you so much, Mark Gibsons, for sending me this awesome, amazing clay. It was so much fun to work with, and you know, this is my favorite type of pottery to do. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe, and be sure to check out my other pottery tutorials as well as lapidary. All right, my friends, once again, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Till next time.